It is the NBA offseason, but there's so much to talk about. I don't even know where to begin. Welcome to the Spurs Roundtable, powered by Project Spurs. I am your host, Jeff Garcia, and I got a very large crew with me to talk about everything the Spurs and a little bit of the NBA has been going on since, the Spurs have walked off with the title. Joining me today is Stephen Anderson from Project Spurs, Paul Garcia of Project Spurs, and our special guest, Paul Castro.
I'm special today? Wow.
Yeah, you're very special.
You never told me I'm special, man, not anymore.
Well, he is the, if you don't know who he is, you probably recognize the voice. He is the Spurs Spanish radio play-by-play, so definitely tune into him during the season to hear his call. And I love your call for any time Manu is a 3 or a Manu 3.
Uno, dos, tres.
That's it right there. Well, before we talk about Manu and him and FIBA, we're going to talk about a little bit about the big news, Becky Hammon. That's right, the WNBA legend is now making history in the NBA, the first ever NBA paid female assistant coach. And right off the bat, we were talking about this before the show kicked off, and we had a little back and forth, especially with Stephen. Stephen, you followed the the Stars, throughout the entire season. What are your thoughts?
You know, the Stars have, well, not only did the season just end, but I mean, with Becky Hammon, she's been a leader on and off the court, getting a chance to interview her in the locker room. She is the same person you see on the court, off the court, very level-headed, good basketball IQ. She knows the plays in and out, and she even makes many references to the Spurs when talking about certain plays that the Stars run.
Now, you're talking about the basketball IQ. That's what everybody's been talking about, Paul, is her basketball IQ's off the charts. Will it mesh now in the NBA coaching with one of the best teams?
Well, you know, last year, guys, she flew with us a couple times to a few games, so I knew something was up. So I knew Coach Pop, like the Spurs, were up to something, you know, special. And I didn't know they were going to actually hire her as a coach. But it's like, great though. It's a great move for the NBA, for the Spurs, for Coach Pop. He's going to lead her to a new place in her career because she's established here already. People around the WNBA know who she is. They like her a lot. She's very smart, talented, and I think what she'll bring to the table is a new perspective to what they did somewhere else. Well, she did somewhere else. So I think for her, it's a step in a direction where she can go to college as a coach, or maybe even in Europe. And who knows, maybe in the NBA one of these days.
Yeah, that's a good question, Paul. You know, will some move like this, whether it be Becky or some other woman in the future, become one day an NBA head coach?
I think that it possibly could. I mean, you just have to look at the organization. The Spurs obviously are the organization to do this because, you know, if a player does try to get out of line, you know, they got to answer to Pop if they do that. I think this is the right organization for that. I don't know how soon it would be that a woman will become a head coach in the NBA, but I definitely think this is a move that, you know, it doesn't matter about, you know, your gender. It's about your mind. You know, she talks about how she knew all the Spurs' plays, you know, their system. They run a lot of the same stuff with, like how they do with the Austin Toros and with the Stars. And so, you know, if there's a team out there, there's a lot of GMs who may be willing to in the future. You know, if they need a coach, they're going to look outside of just that gender aspect and look actually to the basketball mind. And so Becky would be a great candidate for that, I think.
You know, Stephen, you know, once the hire was announced, one of the big things she said is basketball is basketball.
Right. It is. Basketball is basketball, no matter if it's men or women. I know Paul, not this Paul, but that Paul over there, he disagrees.
I said it was different.
it is different, but I mean, you know, it is because it's women and men, but the basketball is the same, whether it's men or women. A lot of same things that the men run, the women do as well.
Well, how is it different, though?
Well, you know what, being around the Spurs for going on 21 years, I can tell you that the male, it's like everything else. You have your male side, you have your female side. There's a line separation. And because working with women, you have to behave differently, talk differently, act differently than you do with your own gender. So that's why I'm thinking that it'll be, not that it will be a problem meshing in, but it'll take a little while to mesh. Because those guys, they don't know her like you think they know her. She's still an outsider coming in new to the bench. So in my opinion, it'll take a little while for her to get to know those guys and vice versa.
Right.
Well, and I think she had a point in her press conference. I was in the conference call when she first got hired that first day, and she did say, you know, physically, men and women will never be able to play on the same level. She says men are just, you know, superior in terms of strength and in terms of speed, but she says, you know, in the mind game, that's a totally different aspect. And as you said, Paul, you know, it's going to be a different kind of approach in that locker room, but I think she has some familiarity. I asked her if she had received any news from any of the players, you know, when she had got hired, and she said, you know, she's very close to Tony Parker, so she's in kind of with the veterans. She kind of knows, you know, I think she'll know like guys like Tony, Tim, Manu, and they're going to keep, you know, the young guys.
Well, her and Duncan have actually participated in the All-Star festivities,
yes, and
you know,
with David Robinson too.
With David Robinson too, so she's familiar with the guys.
Yeah, and like she's also mentioned before, you know, she's always had a male coach most of her career in the WNBA. There's never been like you know, any kind of you know, wild issue that's ever happened in the locker room or anything like that. So.
But you got to remember too, though, guys, that there's a line between being friends and being a boss. So once she steps on the court, she can't be your friend. She's going to be a boss. And it depends how those guys take that too.
And I don't
Wouldn't it
think
be interesting, Stephen, if Pop were to get tossed, in a game, and they need somebody to come in and she steps in? That'd be interesting.
That would be, but
Yeah.
getting back to the locker room issue, I don't think it's going to be an issue at all, because I had the pleasure of meeting Robin Roberts when she was here in San Antonio. She did an interview with Becky, and what happened was that she asked her that specific question: what's going to happen in the locker room? And Becky said exactly what you said, Paul. It's not going to be an issue. She said, I've been coached by men my entire career, most of my WNBA career and my college career also,
Right.
coached by men. She said they never walked in on me, and I don't expect to walk in on them. She
Right.
said it won't be an issue. So I
Right.
don't think it's going to be a problem. As for the friend thing you mentioned, you're right. There is a fine line between friend and coach. And she is, like I said, very good mindset
Right.
with basketball. And it's going to be the thing where she knows where that line is.
All right, Paul, you want the final word on this topic here?
Oh, I was just going to say, too, that a team that wins can take chances like the Spurs are doing with her. A team that's losing cannot afford to have someone like her on their bench.
Well, speaking of just issues in general, one of the big issues that popped up in this offseason was been the injury to Paul George of the Pacers. Everybody saw that it was gruesome. Yeah, if you're not squeamish, go look it up and check it out. But no, there are a couple of Spurs playing right now, well, in an exhibition play as FIBA 2014 World Cup kicks off later this month. Thiago Splitter, Boris Diaw, and Aaron Bays, each playing for their respective home countries. Is this an issue? Should we be worried about these three guys? Got a restricted free agent and 2 locks on the roster, risking that injury, especially to a guy like Boris Diaw.
Yeah.
I've been against pros playing in the Olympics for years. I was fortunate enough to be with Portland, the Blazers, back in the early 90s when we had the Tournament of the Americas. I got to call all the Dream Team games, okay? And that was fantastic. We were unbeatable, never lost a game. But after that, I think they proved the point. Pros in the Olympics are not necessary anymore. Give the lower guys a chance, because things like this happen and you're done for.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. But here's the thing, though. Paul, if Diaw goes down for some injury in the tournament, he was pretty important for the Spurs down the stretch.
Very.
Yeah.
Yes, very, very much. But it's just the chance you got to take right now. Even Paul George, as gruesome as that injury was, he already says I want to come back in 2016 and play for the Olympics. It's something. Diaw, he's up there in age. I think he's 31, 32 years old. So he's obviously a bigger case. But he's even though he is one of their core members, he's obviously if the injury did happen right now in August, he would have the whole season kind of to get back on his feet. But obviously it was a gruesome injury, one that doesn't necessarily happen all the time. A guy like Manu Ginobili has had a history of injury. So I think from a management perspective, you kind of got to look at their age and in the case of which kind of scenarios. But I just think it's going to be really hard for the NBA to take these guys out of playing for the pros, especially maybe the Americans. It might be a little bit easier because they have more control. But for guys like Diaw, for Splitter, for Brazil, France, it's a little bit harder. This is what they really invest in. You saw how happy Tony Parker and Boris were last year when they won the Eurobasket for the first time. So
that's to be it. I mean, they already proved the point.
Right.
Yeah.
They served the country well. Thanks, guys. You've done well. You have a job. You have a career. You have a family to take care of. You're done here. Get the other guy, because if they don't, they'll keep using up spots every single year. Spots for guys that are be as good as them or even better.
Well, we've got one roster spot open. We're talking about Baines a little while ago playing for the Team Australia, but there hasn't been too much movement. There are reports that other European teams are interested in him, but the Spurs look like they might be leaving that 14th spot open.
Yes, it's kind of what the Spurs have been doing in the past. Going into the season with 14 men, you can actually, if somebody gets hurt, like they had numerous injuries. I think only Jeff Ayers and Corey Joseph stayed healthy last year. So if somebody gets hurt, you can bring somebody in from the D League. A few years ago, Boris Diaw, he got bought out by the Charlotte Bobcats in February, so they actually had a spot left open to bring that in. I just think Aaron Baines is a plus. He had some magnificent moments against Portland Trailblazers in that series, but overall he kind of does. He fits in the category of Thiago Splitter, of Jeff Ayers. He doesn't bring a lot.
Well, Stephen and Paul, y'all were before we were recording. Y'all were pretty adamant, like just give the roster spot to Aaron. It makes sense.
To me, it does. He's been here. He knows the system. He knows everything about the Spurs. And you bring someone else, even if it's another pro from another team that's being cut or whatever. He's here. He knows the system. Why would you not already hiring?
Right. And he has.
But it's just my opinion. I mean,
he has some good performances during the regular season.
He does. I mean, he has shine, however you want to say.
Yeah.
He's done all that. I mean, like Paul said, the Portland series, he did very well. But one thing I want to touch what Paul said, which is the system. Everybody said it's hard to learn the Spurs system. Marco Bellinelli said it's tough to learn the Spurs system.
Right.
And he says
at least a year.
Yeah, at least a year.
Yeah.
And so hopefully by next year Marco will get. I think he will.
Yeah.
But I mean, with Baines, he knows it.
Yeah,
already.
I don't think it'll be too much of a loss though if they lose him. I think
it
it's
would.
smart. I think it's prudent. I mean, they got the size, they got the team, the core, the bigger names are back.
Well, there's always the Totals.
Yeah, there's always that.
Yeah.
Paul, final word.
Put him there.
Just, I mean, really, we're arguing about the 15th spot here. And that's the case with this team, is that they have their top 9 guys that they're going to go into the playoffs. And so, really, whether it's Baines, whether it's a guy like Bryce Cotton, these guys in the end, they're not going to bring a huge impact. They're going to be the guys that sit in the suit, during that part.
Well, those are our thoughts right there on the Spurs offseason, and particularly what to do with that last roster spot. So go out to ProjectSpurs.com and leave your thoughts on that topic, as well as all the other topics we talked about, from Becky Hammon to the FIBA World Cup. And if you think it's wise for NBA players to play with their home country as well during the offseason instead of resting, which we're all glad that Manu's resting, right?
Yeah,
we're all glad. Okay, we're all glad about that. Yeah. And again, thanks for Paul Castro again for coming on. I've been asking him for months and years to come on.
You know what? I'm a busy guy, man. I'm a busy guy. So
you can follow him on Twitter at Paul Castro NBA. But for our guests, Paul Castro, Stephen Anderson, and Paul Garcia, I am Jeff Garcia. Thanks again for watching this episode of the Spurs Roundtable.
who's buying lunch?
I think Stephen is. He's
right?
the rookie on the totem pole.
Star season just ended.
Stephen gets it.
Yeah. He just got paid.
Yeah.